Welcome to the Experience Matters podcast with your host, Kent Clothier Sr., and your co-host, Kevin Hommel.
Hello, everyone. Kent Clothier Sr. here. Welcome to the Experience Matters podcast. Co-hosting with me today is Chris Clothier, one of my three sons. Again, we welcome you today. Remind you that you can follow us on memphisinvest.com, iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Again, we're glad you're with us today. Chris, what are we talking about today? I know you got a topic down there. You haven't told me what it is, so I'm kind of going...
You sound unusually excited today, Dad.
I am very excited.
You're talking much faster and with a lot more enthusiasm than normal. What's happening?
I went and listened to one of my previous podcasts and said I need to jack it up a little bit here, all right?
All right, very good.
I wasn't as excited. I was kind of boring a couple of times ago. I want to keep our audience engaged here.
Well, your audience is growing, so you got to make sure that you keep putting out good content, which brings me to today's topic. I don't think, Dad, that your listeners have heard you talk a lot about you've talked about what we do and why we do it, but haven't talked a lot about the underlying, kind of service we provide, being turnkey real estate and opportunities for investors to invest passively from anywhere in the world, really. So I thought it would be good to talk just for a few minutes, a little short podcast today about turnkey real estate.
Well, what does turnkey mean to you? Since you wrote a new book called The Turnkey Revolution, so you should be the expert on what turnkey means.
Well, I tell you that
got him there, didn't we?
I can talk all day long.
Yeah, we know. Tell me what the turnkey.
Yeah, turnkey, the way that we have defined it, and being, Dad, in no small part, the leader of this industry and being involved in it now for 15 years, we have come to define it for investors as the opportunity to buy property passively, build a portfolio, buying a piece of property that was purchased by a company. First, they did a complete renovation on it, not these, lipstick on a pig, little, fix this and fix that type of renovations, but really thorough renovations, eliminating deferred maintenance, and then placing it with a property management company. I think it's important that management company is owned by the turnkey company. So you have one in-house, under one roof process where the same person that purchased it and was willing to put their money on the line, the same person that renovated it is the same person that's responsible for the way that property performs. So for me, turnkey is really, you're buying a property that someone purchased, somebody renovated, somebody is now managing for you, and they're standing behind that whole process.
Well, that's really good. So let me kind of go back a little bit. And again, for the benefit of new investors or students or people learning or just starting to learn the real estate investor side of the business, exactly what turnkey means, because I think it means different things to other people.
Good point. But
to us, it starts when we purchase a property in one of the 5 cities that we're in, either Little Rock, Oklahoma City, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth Metroplex, or Memphis. So we're actively seeking to buy properties in those markets every single day, and our mission is to buy 20 plus properties every week. So that's how the turnkey process starts. We have to have buyers in these markets that are seeking out these properties for us that fit into a certain diameter and dynamic that we're looking for to be able to purchase the properties. So that's the first thing, and that is a process that we probably have at any one time. We have 7 buyers, 8 buyers that today are responsible for buying those 20 houses a week, which would put us on pace for over 1,000 properties. Last year we did a little over 700, so we've ramped it up a little bit this year. So we're wanting to buy those properties. That's the first step. And then once we buy them, then our renovation team comes in and assesses exactly what needs to be done, anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 on these properties to bring them up to condition that we can rent them to a tenant and provide the income and the return that we seek to have for our investors. So we get the houses renovated, and that usually takes the whole process from us buying it, renovating it, and closing with an investor is about 115 days. From buying it, the day we sign the contract, or the day we close on it, to the day that we close on it on the back end, sell it to an investor, is about 115 days. And in that process right there is the buying, the renovation, and the rental of it, the closing of the rental, and closing with the investor. So that's the turnkey process as far as the buying and the renovating and then the property management. What we do in the turnkey process is we control all three of those areas. Of course, we buy it, and then we renovate it, and then we rent it. So we own the property management company. So we are responsible for the residents and their experience in the properties. And going back again a little bit, when we buy it, we have a lot of people that we depend on to help us buy houses outside of our company. We have a lot of people in the renovation department, vendors, that we spend over $30 to $35 million a year with those vendors to get us through the turnkey process. Then we have a team of rental agents in all 5 markets that help us get 2-year leases on every one of the houses. And then we have investors that are seeking to buy properties from us that will come into our team and be part of the turnkey process. So that's kind of the short version there, Chris, from kind of the start, and there's a lot of detail in between all of that, but is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah, I talk in the book that you mentioned earlier about really how this started. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm sure you don't have the napkin anymore, but you kind of drew out on a napkin what you were thinking about with for Memphis Invest. And this was, 14, 15 years ago. You were thinking about what was this going to look like. Is that right? You literally took a napkin and you drew out on a napkin kind of what you thought this would end up being?
Well, I had a vision to continue to scale the business and buy more houses. At one time, we were focused on buying 100 and then 200 and then 300. And people have talked about 10 years ago, we had these little signs sitting around our office that we were going to try to do 300 houses. And today we're doing 700, this year 800, 900, 1,000, whatever this year is going to be. But we had a vision. It takes a lot of people, a lot of really, really good people. We have 85 people that work in our company today. So it's a vision, and it can continue to grow with the processes and the procedures and the detail that we have in place to ensure that we can continue to scale it every single year.
Yeah. So again, you were when this thing started, you were giving talks at the local real estate investors associations, right?
Yes.
And you were approached by people that said, "Hey, this sounds great, but I don't have the time, I don't have the knowledge." I mean, isn't that what turnkey is for in the first place? It's for people that it's not. There's this thing that's said all the time that really bothers me, that only newbie investors, which is, I guess, meant to be a derogatory term for somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, that only newbie investors invest in turnkey, and that's not the case, right? I mean, that's certainly not what you were thinking back at the time. You had people that already had properties but said, "I can't keep building my portfolio because I can't do this on my own." Isn't that right?
Well, we had people that came to us with some existing properties in their current markets that fit into the dynamics that we were looking for, and we took some of those on and managed it for them. But for the most part, a typical investor that invests in turnkey properties is our typical investor is a successful, married, little bit higher income person, very successful, already husband and wife combination for the most part, although we have single men and single women that own properties. Probably in the 40 to 60 year old range, not all of them. We have some much younger ones today that are coming on board, but these are people that are looking for the turnkey product to where they don't have to be involved in it. And we talk again, most of our investors today I'm going to say maybe 60% of our investors today have never been and seen their property. Occasionally they'll come in and visit our offices and go look at their properties, but we've got this process and system down so good now that we've earned the trust of our investors to where they don't even see the property. When we send them pictures and location, of course, today on the internet, you can see right down to with Google Maps exactly where the house is and satellite view, whatever you want to see, so you can see everything that we see. But we're in the houses, and for the most part, some of our investors buy them sight unseen, and that's, again, part of the passive process.
Well, and to that point, talking about the property itself, it's way more important in the turnkey world who you're investing with as opposed to the property itself. I mean, because, and we say that all the time, because if you're investing with the right company that shares your values, and say those values are, I don't want to be in highly distressed areas of a town. I don't want to be in a price point that is highly transient, meaning, $500, $600, $700 a month rents. I want to be in a better area under less distress. I want to, invest in homes that attract a 2-income earning family. So maybe the cost is higher, the neighborhood is, maybe newer. Some of these types of areas. If the company does that, then as an investor, you have to worry less about the home itself and more about, how do they perform? What are the metrics? Do they track their metrics? One of the things you've talked a lot about already on the podcast. Do they track the metrics? Are they interested in building a portfolio like we talked about last time, or are they interested in just selling me a house? It's less about the house and much more about who it is you're doing business with. Don't you agree?
Yes, and that's why we take a lot of pride in our property management company, in that today we have right at 4,500 properties that we manage. And when we first started in the property management business 15 years ago, we were we were not very good at property management. Today we fine-tuned this machine to where we can manage 4,500 properties, and we have great people doing it, great systems, great processes, from maintenance to leasing to pre-qual to everything that we do on the front end, qualifying a resident to getting them closed. It's just a complete process down there as far as our property management department to ensure the success of the turnkey investor. So,
yeah, and to put that in perspective for people, all your listeners out there, Dad, 4,500 properties, which I know you're rounding down because that's where we started the year off. So I know that we're even a little higher than that now, but the value of those properties. So you're talking about investors, again, from all over the country, a few foreign investors that own properties with us, but we're managing portfolios for them with a value of over $600 million. I just did the math here again. It is the value of their portfolios, the wealth that they have, that they are creating, and whatever you want to call it, they're paying it off, they are earning against it, whatever it is, it's over $600 million. That's a massive amount of wealth to be managing for people. And it all started, as we said, by you giving talks and people approaching you saying, hey, I like what you're doing, and I don't have the time to keep doing this. Can you help me? That's how this thing started, and that's amazing.
And it's one house at a time. And these are not multi-units or houses that we buy 50 at a time, or apartment houses with two. This is one single family resident at a time. And when we started this, the vision was the next house, the next house, the next house. Right. Today we're sitting in here and we realize that we're going to go past 5,000 houses later this year. We will be real close to 6,000 by the time we get to the end of 2019. And we're looking at this $1 billion mark in assets that we're managing in the next 3 or 4 years, because it's coming up really, really quickly on us. And so it's a challenge for us. It's an opportunity for us to continue to get better every single day. We take tremendous pride that our investors have trusted us with their investment, turnkey investment, and we just want to keep getting better in every single day to perform even better than what we are today for those people.
Yeah, I'm sure as we're getting ready to wrap this up, all your listeners would like to know, because you just said it a couple times. So you mentioned the $1 billion mark, and you mentioned 3 to 4 years. That lets everybody know that we've got these milestones that we're looking at, these things that we want to hit and we want to achieve. I'm sure a lot of people want to know, what do you really think that looks like? If you could just guess 3-4 years from now, how many cities might this be in? How many, you said 10 or $1 billion, that would be over 7,500 properties. How many people does it take to manage that? How many cities would it be in? What do you really think may happen over these next few years?
Well, we are, of course, as I said earlier, we're in 5 cities today. We are looking at a couple of other cities. We've been in San Antonio, we've been to Birmingham, we've been to St. Louis. Those are on our immediate radar, but as we continue to look even a bigger vision and realizing that with technology today, we can do a lot of things with technology that we couldn't do 10 years ago when we first started, including doing online rentals and online closings with our residents, and we can do a lot of this through technology. So it enhances the vision, makes it even more defined for the opportunities that's out there to continue to grow. So the next 3 to 5 years certainly could be looking at other cities and even more areas that we're not in, even other states that we're not in, other mid-cities, larger cities. So we can really do this in other places. We're up to about over 200 houses right now, I think, in Houston, and each one of our markets is growing. So it's out there. So I'm going to wrap this up. Did you have anything else you want to jump in here with on the turnkey?
No. I think your listeners, they like to hear some of this stuff every once in a while. They want to know whether they're an investor of ours or even just somebody that's looking to build a company or looking to invest themselves. It's just, it's interesting. This is more than just some family company. This is more than just let's put something together. I want to give your listeners today, Dad, a sense of this is, as we said, a company driving towards $1 billion under management. That's a big deal, and it did all start. You brought up my book early on. It did all start with the story I talked about in that book. You giving a talk, and then writing out the vision for something you could do at the time. I wasn't even part of the picture. As a turnkey company, you wrote it out on a napkin. I think that's pretty damn cool to start from that to what we're doing today. So where you're trying to go next. So I like it. I think that your listeners they like listening to this kind of stuff. So
well, let's talk about just for a second your book. And those of you that are on video, I'm showing a picture of Chris's new book that's coming out, The Turnkey Revolution. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, my role, a couple episodes back, Dad, we talked about roles, and my role from the beginning has always been writing the blog, giving talks around the country, putting some of our marketing together, doing some of our sales. That's what I started off with at the beginning. And a couple years ago, started taking my blogs and all the articles and the white papers and stuff that we've done through the years and started trying to compile it into some cohesive story. And so what ends up coming from that is The Turnkey Revolution, which is a book that tells how you started the company. It shares 7 or 8 different stories of different investors and things they've done good and the mistakes they've made. It talks a little bit about how an investor can invest safely and securely far from home. And it uses examples of investors with us. As I said, the things they've done good, the things they've done bad, the mistakes they've made, and the successes they've had. So that's really what the book's all about. It's a blueprint. Tell somebody, hey, look, if you want to do this, this is how you do it well. It's funny, it's not a big promotion from Memphis Invest. It's really kind of, we know that we are the kind of the best. You're kind of like the grandfather of turnkey. You've been in this longer than anybody else, and that book is all about how to do this safely and successfully from a company that's done it for thousands of investors already.
All right, well, tell our listeners that if anybody is interested in this book, and I know it may not be on the shelves yet, what's the process to roll it out? And if somebody wants one now or 30 days from now, how would they go about acquiring one?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, this anybody can publish a book, and you know how we are. This goes back to something that I think you've ingrained in us as your sons for a long time. I could have done this on Amazon and picked some obscure, titling or whatever and claimed an Amazon bestseller. Instead, this book was actually bought by McGraw-Hill. They brought me on as an author. We're talking about more books. You and I have talked about a book for you afterwards, later on, after this book gets going. So we've got a real publisher in McGraw-Hill who believes in us, believes in the book itself, believes in what we've done. It's available in Barnes & Noble and on Amazon and in bulk sales with 800 CEO reads. And all of that will be available on May 4th, I believe. And so we're doing some pre-sales now. We're going to begin to talk a little bit about it more. We'll put it out to all of your listeners, anybody else that wants it. But it is this is a real deal for us. This is something we're going to do more of as we go forward with McGraw-Hill. So,
well, there you go. Coming to a store near you around May 4th, Chris Clothier's The Turnkey Revolution. So we look forward to that getting out there, and some of our listeners, or a lot of our listeners, I'm sure, will be waiting for it to come out, and because it's a how many pages you got in here, Chris? All this, let me see.
Thick.
You got over 200 pages of insights on the Turnkey Revolution coming for you. So, again, we'll wrap up today. Hopefully, the turnkey process has been good for you, good content for you today. My name is Kent Clothier. Chris, thank you. And again, I'll remind you that you can find us on the MemphisInvest.com website. You can find us at Stitcher, iTunes, and SoundCloud. And we hope you join us. Again, we thank all of our listeners that have joined us today. We're closing in on over 20,000 people that have joined our podcast and seen what we do and listened to and have an interest in our content. We thank you very much for that. And if any of you are ever in the Memphis or Dallas area, we would invite you to come by and see us and visit with us. Our doors are always open. And with that, I'll say I'll see you on the next version of Experience Matters podcast, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Experience Matters. You can listen and subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. Be sure to visit us at MemphisInvest.com.